The Omega's hand shook as he yanked his shirt over his head, not bothering with the buttons. His scent had gone sharp with panic, cutting through the expensive cologne and wine-soaked air of the penthouse. "I can't," he whispered, backing toward the door. "I'm sorry, I really am. You're both amazing, but I can't do this." Jaywin didn't move from where he stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle's skyline. His expression stayed carefully blank, but his hands curled into fists at his sides. "Did we do something wrong?" Daehyun asked quietly. The Omega's eyes filled with something that looked like genuine regret. "No. God, no. You've been perfect. It's just—" He glanced down, then away, color rising in his cheeks. "I saw, and I can't. I'll hurt myself. I'm not built for that." The door clicked shut behind him. Silence settled over the room like ash after a fire. Daehyun walked to the bar and poured 2 fingers of scotch. His hand didn't shake. He'd learned how to keep it steady after the 3rd rejection. The 4th, now the 7th. "We should have known," Jaewon said to the window. He was different, confident. "I thought maybe—" "Don't." Daehyun drained the glass in one swallow. "Don't do that to yourself." They had everything. A penthouse that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. A pack position that commanded respect and fear in equal measure. Wealth accumulated over generations. Power that opened every door in the Pacific Northwest. But they couldn't keep an Omega past the moment clothes came off. 7 times now. 7 different men who'd looked at them with desire, flirted over dinner, kissed them in elevators and against walls. 7 who'd wanted them right up until they didn't. Jaewon's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then silenced the call. Their head of security could wait. The business could wait. Everything could wait while he stood here feeling like a goddamn freak in a designer suit. "Maybe we stop trying," Jaewon said. Daehyun poured another drink. "We said that last time. I mean it this time." But they'd meant it, before everything changed. 3 days earlier, Daehyun had been reviewing quarterly reports in their home office when their cousin Minsuk walked in without knocking. "We have a problem," Minsuk said, dropping a file folder onto the mahogany desk. Daehyun looked up. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where our pack council is doing business with the Beck pack." Minsuk sat down, expression grim. "I've been tracking financial irregularities for 2 months. Payments to shell companies, private transactions, all connected to their trafficking operation." Jaewon appeared in the doorway, fresh from a business call. "Our council is working with the Becks?" "Not working with. Buying from." Minsuk pulled out his phone, showing them surveillance photos. "The Beck pack runs underground Omega auctions. Our council members are clients. They purchase Omegas, use them, resell them. Some even broker deals for other packs. They've been profiting off this for years." Daehyun's jaw tightened. Their council had always been corrupt, hiding behind tradition while lining their pockets. But partnering with their rival pack, funding Omega trafficking, that was absolutely inhumane. "There's an auction tonight," Minsuk continued. "I got us on the guest list under fake names. We go in, document who from our council shows up, gather evidence, and take it to the tribunal. Legal prosecution, clean break." Jaewon's expression darkened. "If the Becks figure out who we are, then we're careful." Daehyun closed the file. "What time?" 4 hours later, they stood inside a warehouse that smelled like rust, cigarette smoke, and fear. The space had been converted into something that mimicked legitimacy. Rows of metal folding chairs faced a raised platform. Red lights pulsed overhead, casting everything in shades of blood and shadow. Alphas in expensive suits filled the seats, talking in low voices like this was a gallery opening instead of a slave market. Daehyun's stomach turned. "Stay calm," Minsuk murmured from beside them. "We're just observers. Don't react. Don't engage. Get the evidence and leave." A beta stepped onto the stage, tablet in hand and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Gentlemen, welcome. Tonight we have premium merchandise. All verified, all trained. Let's begin with our first selection." The first Omega who was brought out couldn't have been more than 20. Thin, terrified. He kept his eyes on the floor while the auctioneer listed his details like he was livestock. Sold for 18,000 to an alpha in the third row. Then another. And another. Dae-hyun forced himself to watch, to memorize faces, to record every detail they'd need for evidence. Beside him, Jaewon's scent had gone cold with barely leashed rage. By the 11th Omega, Dae-hyun's control was fraying. Then he was brought onto the stage, small, maybe 5'6", dark hair falling over his face, obscuring his expression. His skin was pale where it wasn't mottled with bruises, wrists, throat, collarbones. He wore plain clothes that hung loose on his frame, and he moved with the careful stillness of someone who'd learned that any movement could be punished. The auctioneer grabbed his arm, yanking him toward center stage. And there, just for a heartbeat, something flickered across the Omega's face. His jaw tightened. His fingers curled into fists before forcing themselves flat again. His shoulders pulled back slightly, then dropped into submission. But Dae-hyun saw it, the flash of defiance, the ember still burning under all that ash. This one was still fighting. Sungmin, the auctioneer announced, 24 years old, 3 years in service, experienced, obedient, regular heat cycles. Opening bid, 15,000. Hands went up across the room. 20,000, 25, 30. Jaewon's hand found Dae-hyun's wrist, gripped tight. They weren't supposed to do this. They were here for evidence, not intervention. Buying an Omega would blow their cover and create complications they couldn't afford. But then a voice cut through the bidding, smooth and familiar. 50,000. Alpha Juntae from the Kim pack. Dae-hyun's blood went cold. Everyone knew Juntae's reputation. 3 dead Omegas in 2 years. All ruled accidents. All purchased from auctions exactly like this. On stage, Sungmin's head lifted slightly. His eyes found Juntae in the crowd. And for one unguarded moment, pure terror broke through his carefully blank expression. He knew. Somehow, this Omega knew exactly what that Alpha was capable of. The room went silent, waiting to see if anyone would challenge the bid. Jaewon stood. 100,000, he said clearly. Every head turned. Min-seok cursed under his breath. The auctioneer's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. Juntae's expression went ugly. 125. Dae-hyun rose to stand beside his twin. 200,000. Cash. Tonight. Shock rippled through the warehouse. Juntae's hands curled on the armrests of his chair. But he didn't counter. Nobody countered. The amount was obscene for an Omega who'd already been broken in, already used. Sold, the auctioneer said slowly, something like greed and suspicion warring in his voice. To the gentleman in the back. On stage, Sungmin's gaze finally lifted to meet theirs. Dark brown eyes, exhausted, wary, waiting for the next hurt. But beneath the fear and resignation, something else stirred. Something fragile. Something that looked almost like hope, though he was clearly trying to kill it before it could take root. Then his scent reached them, faint, buried under suppressants and trauma and 3 years of hell. But unmistakable. Warmth. Rain on summer pavement. Something that felt like coming home after a lifetime of being lost. Jaewon inhaled sharply. Dae-hyun went completely still, his heart slamming against his ribs. No. Impossible. The broken Omega on that stage, bought and sold and brutalized, smelled like their mate. Sungmin's eyes widened slightly, his breath catching. He'd scented them too. Recognition flickered across his face. Confusion, disbelief, and something that looked like devastation. Because of course his fated mates would be 2 more alphas who just bought him like property. The auctioneer gestured, and handlers moved to escort Sungmin off the stage. Dae-hyun couldn't look away. Neither could Jaewon. And neither, despite everything, could Sungmin. Sungmin's legs nearly gave out as the handlers gripped his arms, pulling him off the stage. The spotlights burned white behind his eyes, but all he could see were those 2 alphas standing in the back of the warehouse. Tall, identical, staring at him like he was something more than merchandise. Their scent lingered in his nose even across the distance. Clean, expensive. Nothing like the stale cigarettes and cheap cologne that usually marked the men who bought him, and underneath it all, something that made his chest ache with a longing he'd thought beaten out of him years ago. Home. No. He crushed the thought before it could take root. There was no such thing as home. Not for him. Not anymore. The handlers shoved him into a small room off to the side of the warehouse floor. Concrete walls, a metal chair, a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. He'd been in rooms like this before, waiting to be collected like luggage. 15 minutes passed. 20. Then the door opened. The twins stepped inside, and Seungmin's breath caught in his throat. Up close, they were devastating. Sharp jawlines, dark eyes that saw too much. One wore a black suit, the other charcoal gray, but otherwise they were mirror images of each other. The one in black spoke first. "My name is Dae-hyun. This is my brother Jae-won." Seungmin kept his eyes down. Speaking without permission usually earned a slap, sometimes worse. "You don't have to do that," Jae-won said quietly. "Look down, I mean. You can look at us." A test. It had to be a test. Some alphas like to set traps, offer false kindness just to punish you for believing it. Seungmin didn't move. Dae-hyun exchanged a glance with his brother, something passing between them that Seungmin couldn't read. Then Dae-hyun pulled out his phone. "We need to finish the transaction. Wait here." They left. Seungmin's hands shook in his lap. Their scent lingered, wrapping around him like smoke, and his body responded in ways he couldn't control. Heat prickled along his skin. His heart raced. The mate bond pulled at something deep in his chest, trying to drag him toward them. He dug his nails into his palms until the pain cleared his head. Mate bonds were lies. Pretty evolutionary tricks designed to trap omegas into thinking they were safe, wanted, cherished. He'd learned that lesson the hard way. The door opened again 20 minutes later. This time, a backpack enforcer entered with a tablet. "Sign here. Transfer of ownership." Seungmin took the stylus with numb fingers and scrawled his name where indicated. He'd signed forms like this 11 times in 3 years. 11 different owners. Some kept him for months, others for weeks. One for just 3 days before deciding he wasn't worth the trouble. The enforcer left without another word. Dae-hyun and Jae-won returned, and this time Jae-won held out a sleek black coat. "It's cold outside. You'll need this." Seungmin stared at the coat like it might bite him. "Please," Dae-hyun said. "We're parked 2 blocks away." Slowly, Seungmin took the coat and pulled it on. It was too big, swallowing his frame, and it smelled like them. His instincts screamed at him to burrow into that scent, to let it comfort him. He ignored it. They led him out through a side exit. Avoiding the main warehouse floor, the night air bit cold against his face. Seattle's industrial district stretched dark and empty around them, streetlights casting orange pools on cracked pavement. A black Mercedes waited at the curb. Jae-won opened the back door. "Get in." Seungmin climbed into the back seat. Leather interior, tinted windows, the kind of car that cost more than most people made in a year. Dae-hyun slid into the driver's seat. Jae-won took the passenger side. Neither of them tried to sit in back with him. The engine purred to life, and they pulled away from the warehouse. Silence filled the car like a held breath. Seungmin pressed himself against the door, watching the city lights blur past. His mind raced through possibilities. Maybe they wanted privacy before they used him. Maybe they had a place outside the city where no one would hear him scream. Maybe. "We're not going to hurt you," Dae-hyun said, eyes on the road. Seungmin said nothing. "I know you don't believe that," Jae-won added, "but it's true." Words were cheap. Seungmin had heard every variation of reassurance and promise over the last 3 years. They all meant nothing when the door locked and the lights went out. 20 minutes later, they pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a glass tower that stretched toward the sky. Expensive cars filled reserved spaces. Everything gleamed with wealth that felt like a different world. They took an elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, Seungmin stepped into a penthouse that stole the breath from his lungs. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Modern furniture in shades of gray and black. Art on the walls that probably cost more than his entire life was worth. "This way," Dae-hyun said, leading him down a hallway. He opened a door to a bedroom. King-size bed, attached bathroom. A window with a view that made Seungmin's chest tight. "This is yours," Jae-won said. "There's clothes in the closet. Bathroom's stocked. If you need anything." "What do you want from me?" The words escaped before Shungmin could stop them. Both alphas turned to look at him. "We want you to be safe," Daehyun said. "That's not an answer." Jaewon stepped closer, and Shungmin flinched before he could control it. Jaewon stopped immediately, hands raised. "We're not going to touch you, not unless you want us to." "You bought me." "We know." Daehyun's voice was rough. "And we're sorry. But that bastard who was bidding against us, we couldn't let him have you. So you own me instead." "No." Jaewon pulled something from his pocket. A key. He held it out. "The door locks from the inside. You control who comes in, not us." Shungmin stared at the key like it was a snake. "Tomorrow we'll get you papers," Daehyun continued. "A new identity, money, anything you need to disappear and start over. You don't owe us anything." This was the trap. It had to be. They were playing some sick game, offering hope just to rip it away later. But his hand reached out anyway, taking the key. Their fingers brushed for just a second. Heat shot through Shungmin's body like lightning. His sense spiked involuntarily, and both alphas inhaled sharply. Their eyes darkened. Their sense thickened in the air, wrapping around him. The mate bond sang between them, demanding, desperate. Shungmin jerked his hand back and stumbled into the room, slamming the door behind him. His heart hammered against his ribs. His skin felt too tight. Every nerve ending screamed at him to open that door, to go to them, to let them. No. He locked the door with shaking hands and pressed his back against it, sliding down until he sat on the floor. On the other side, he heard them breathing, waiting. "We'll be right out here if you need anything," Daehyun said through the wood. Footsteps retreated down the hall. Shungmin sat in the silence, their scent seeping under the door, and felt something inside him crack. What kind of alphas bought their mate, an Omega, and then let him lock them out? Shungmin couldn't stop shaking. His back pressed against the door, knees pulled to his chest, and their scent wrapped around him like smoke he couldn't escape. It seeped under the gap at the bottom, curled through the air vents, saturated everything until he could barely breathe without tasting them on his tongue. Rain and cedar, clean linen. Something darker underneath that made his body respond in ways he'd learned to kill years ago. He dug his nails into his palms until the sting cleared his head. This was a game. It had to be. Alphas didn't buy Omegas at auction and then hand them keys. They didn't offer freedom. They didn't stand outside locked doors and wait patiently like they actually cared whether he felt safe. He'd fallen for kindness before. It always ended the same way. Footsteps moved past his door. Water running in another room. The soft clink of glass against marble. Normal sounds. Domestic sounds. The kind of sounds that belonged to people who had lives instead of survival strategies. His stomach growled, sharp and mean. He couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten. Yesterday? The day before? The backpack didn't waste money feeding merchandise between sales. He should sleep, conserve energy. He'd need it for whatever came next. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw them. Twin alphas with identical faces and eyes that looked at him like he was something more than meat. He felt their fingers brush his when they handed him the key. That split-second contact that sent heat racing through his veins and made his sense spike so hard, he'd wanted to die from the humiliation. The mate bond hummed in his chest like a second heartbeat. He shoved it down deep and locked it away with every other stupid, dangerous hope he'd ever had. Pale morning light filtered through the curtains when Shungmin finally gave up on sleep. His body ached from sitting on the floor all night. His mouth tasted like ash. He needed water, food, a shower that might wash away the phantom feeling of hands he'd learned to expect but hadn't come. He stood slowly, joints protesting, and pressed his ear to the door. Silence. Maybe they'd left. Maybe they'd gotten bored waiting for him to come crawling out and decided he wasn't worth the trouble after all. The thought shouldn't have hurt, but it did. He unlocked the door as quietly as possible and eased it open. The hallway stretched empty in both directions. Morning sun poured through those massive windows, turning the penthouse into something out of a magazine. Everything gleamed. Everything looked untouched and perfect, and nothing like the world he actually lived in. A tray sat on the floor just outside his door. He stared at it like it might explode. Covered plate, glass of water, a note written in clean, precise handwriting. We didn't want to wake you. Eat. Rest. We'll be in the kitchen when you're ready to talk. His throat went tight. He picked up the tray with shaking hands and carried it back inside. Set it on the bed, lifted the cover. Toast, scrambled eggs, fresh fruit cut into perfect pieces, a small container of honey, real food, not the stale rice and scraps he'd gotten used to, not the protein bars tossed into cages between buyers. He ate standing up, too paranoid to sit, and he hated how good it tasted, hated that his eyes burned with something dangerously close to tears over eggs and toast. When he finished, he used the bathroom, stared at himself in the mirror, and barely recognized what looked back. Bruises in various stages of healing, hollows under his eyes, hair that needed cutting. He looked like exactly what he was, used up, broken down, nothing worth keeping. He should leave. Walk out the front door and disappear before this turned into something worse than it already was. But he didn't move. 30 minutes later, Seungmin stepped into the kitchen. Both of them were there. Daehyun stood at the counter pouring coffee. Jaewon sat at the island reading something on BV, his phone. They looked up when he entered, and their sense hit him like a physical force. His knees nearly buckled. "Good morning," Daehyun said carefully, like Seungmin was a wild animal he didn't want to spook. Seungmin stayed near the doorway. Flight path clear. Exit strategy plan. "Did you sleep?" Jaewon asked. "No." The honest answer surprised them. Seungmin saw it flicker across their identical faces. "We have coffee," Daehyun offered. "Or tea. Whatever you want. I want to know what you want from me." The words came out harder than he meant them to. Jaewon set down his phone. Daehyun put down the coffee pot. "We told you," Jaewon said. "We want you to be safe." "Bullshit." Seungmin stepped further into the room. "Nobody spends $200,000 on safety. You bought me. You own me. So what's the game? When does the kindness stop and the real thing start?" Daehyun's jaw tightened. "There's no game." "Then let me leave." "You can leave," Jaewon said immediately. "Right now. We won't stop you." Seungmin laughed, bitter and sharp. "Sure, I'll just walk out onto the streets with no ID, no money, and an ownership brand on my hip that says I'm backpack property. How long do you think I'd last before someone picked me up and sold me again?" "We'll get you papers," Daehyun said. "A new identity. Money. It'll take a few days, but—" "A few days." Seungmin crossed his arms. "And what do I do until then? What do you expect in exchange?" "Nothing," Jaewon said. "Nobody gives something for nothing." "We do." The certainty in his voice made Seungmin want to scream. He moved closer, testing, waiting for them to reveal what they really were underneath all this careful gentleness. "Why?" he demanded. "Why me? You didn't know me. So why drop that kind of money on a used-up Omega you'll never see again?" Daehyun and Jaewon exchanged a look. Something passed between them, some silent twin communication Seungmin couldn't read. "Because we couldn't let him have you," Daehyun finally said. "Juntae." Jaewon's voice went cold. "We know what he does to Omegas. We've seen the aftermath. We couldn't watch it happen again. So you're heroes." The sarcasm dripped from every word. "You saved me out of the goodness of your hearts?" "No," Daehyun said quietly. "We're not heroes." Seungmin stepped even closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating off them, close enough that their scents made his head swim and his body ache with want he refused to acknowledge. "Then what are you?" Jaewon's eyes locked on his. "Lonely?" The single word hit Seungmin harder than any fist ever had. "We're lonely," Daehyun continued. "And when you stepped onto that stage, when we scented you—" "Don't!" Seungmin backed up fast. "Don't talk about the bond. Don't pretend this is fate or destiny or any of that bullshit they use to keep Omegas compliant. It's not bullshit to us," Jaewon said. "It's a lie." Seungmin's voice cracked despite his best efforts. "The bond is just biology. It doesn't mean safety. It doesn't mean love. It means nothing except another way to get hurt." Daehyun moved toward him, and Seungmin flinched hard. He stopped immediately, hands raised. "We're not going to hurt you." "Everyone says that. Everyone lies." "We're not lying," Jaewon said. "Why should I believe you won't use me?" Seungmin's hands curled into fists. Every alpha says they'll be gentle. They all lie. Daehyun's expression shifted into something raw. We can't use you. We've tried with others. 7 times. It never works. Seungmin stared at him. What do you mean it doesn't work? Jaewon's laugh was bitter, broken. They see us and they run. Every single one. We're too much. Too big down there. They're afraid we'll tear them apart. The confession hung in the air between them. Seungmin's breath caught. He searched their faces for the lie, for the trap, but all he saw was shame that mirrored his own. So you're broken too, rejected in a way, he whispered. Yes, Daehyun said simply. The fight drained out of Seungmin all at once. He wanted to hate them, wanted to keep the walls up and the distance safe, but standing there seeing their pain reflected back at him. He couldn't do it. I hate this, he said, voice breaking. We know, Jaewon said softly. I hate that you smell like home. I hate that I want to believe you. Daehyun took one careful step forward, then another, close enough that Seungmin could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, close enough that the space between them felt electric. Then believe us, Daehyun said. Seungmin's heart hammered against his ribs. His body screamed at him to close the distance, to let them touch him, to surrender to the bond burning between them. He jerked backward instead, stumbling into the counter. I can't, he gasped. I can't do this. He ran, back down the hallway, into his room, but this time he left the door open. Resisting the bond hurt worse than any alpha he ever had. Seungmin sat on the edge of the bed, door still open behind him, and tried to remember how to breathe. His skin felt too hot. His scent had gone thick and sweet in a way that made panic claw up his throat. No, not now, not here. His heat wasn't due for another 2 weeks. He'd been careful with his suppressants, taking them exactly on schedule even when the backpack handlers forgot to give them to him. But he hadn't had access to his pills since the auction. 2 days without them, and his body was already spiraling out of control, especially with the newfound mate bond. He pressed his palms against his thighs, trying to ground himself. The preheat symptoms were still manageable. Elevated temperature, increased scent production, a low ache starting to build in his abdomen. If he could get suppressants in the next few hours, he might be able to push it back, but that meant asking them for help. Asking meant admitting vulnerability, admitting need. And every Omega knew what happened when alphas scented heat. Seungmin stood on unsteady legs and moved to close the door. His hand touched the wood, ready to slam it shut and lock himself in until this passed. He couldn't do it. The open door felt like the only honest thing between them. Closing it now felt like a lie. He left it open and crawled back onto the bed, pulling his knees to his chest. An hour passed, then 2. Seungmin heard them moving around the penthouse. Quiet conversations he couldn't make out. The sound of a door closing, water running, normal sounds that did nothing to calm the rising heat in his blood. He needed to tell them. Needed to ask for suppressants or a hospital or something before this got worse. But his throat locked up every time he tried to move. Around noon, a soft knock came at his open door. Seungmin's head snapped up. Daehyun stood in the doorway, carefully staying in the hall, a plate of food in his hands. I made lunch, Daehyun said. I'm not hungry. Daehyun's eyes narrowed slightly. He took a small step forward, then stopped. His nostrils flared, his scent shifted, sharpening with something that made Seungmin's pulse spike. Recognition. You're in preheat, Daehyun said quietly. Seungmin's hands curled into the blanket. It's nothing. It'll pass. When's the last time you took suppressants? Days ago. Daehyun set the plate down on the hallway floor and backed up 2 steps. You need them now. We can get you to a clinic. Or I can have someone deliver. No clinic. The words came out sharper than Seungmin intended. Clinics meant questions, documentation, ways to track him back to the backpack. Then we'll get them delivered. 30 minutes. Daehyun pulled out his phone and stepped further away, already dialing. His scent had gone carefully neutral, controlled in a way that must have taken effort. Seungmin watched him disappear down the hallway and felt something crack in his chest. Daehyun hadn't moved closer, hadn't touched him, hadn't done any of the things Seungmin had learned to expect when alphas scented heat. He'd stepped back, 20 minutes later, Jae-won appeared at the door with a glass of water and 2 pills. "Courier just dropped these off," Jae-won said, setting them on the floor just inside the threshold. "Take them now. They'll work faster if you are hydrated." Seungmin stared at the pills like they might be poisoned. "They're clean," Jae-won added. "Prescription grade. I checked the packaging." "Why?" Jae-won's expression shifted into something Seungmin couldn't read. "Because we're not going to take advantage of your heat. Ever. Every alpha says that. We're not every alpha." The conviction in his voice made Seungmin's throat tight. He forced himself to stand, to cross the room, to pick up the pills and water. Jae-won backed into the hallway, giving him space. Seungmin swallowed the suppressants and drained the glass. "Thank you," he whispered. Jae-won nodded once and left. The pills didn't work. 2 hours later, Seungmin's temperature spiked. His skin felt like it was burning from the inside out. The ache in his abdomen had turned into sharp, rolling cramps that made him curl into a ball on the bed. His scent flooded the room, thick and desperate and impossible to control. Heat had hit full force. 3 years on unstable suppressants had wrecked his cycle. What should have been a gradual build over days had collapsed into hours. His body didn't know how to regulate anymore. He needed an alpha, needed a knot, needed relief before the pain tore him apart. But every time he thought about calling for them, his mind showed him every heat he'd survived, every alpha who'd used him and left him bleeding, every time kindness had been a trap. A soft knock came at the door. "Seungmin," Daehyun's voice rough and strained. "We're leaving. We'll go to a hotel. Our scent is making it worse for you." "No," the words scraped out of him. "Don't leave. We have to. Our instincts—" Daehyun's voice broke. "We can't be here. We won't risk hurting you." Seungmin dragged himself to the edge of the bed. His vision blurred. Everything hurt. "You won't. You don't know that. I know you stepped back. I know you got me suppressants. I know you're trying to leave to protect me." Seungmin's hands shook violently. "That's more than anyone's ever done." Silence from the hallway. "Please," Seungmin whispered. "Don't leave me alone." More silence, then footsteps moving away. Seungmin's heart shattered, but the footsteps came back. 2 sets, both twins standing just outside his open door, close enough that their scent wrapped around him and made the pain ease just slightly. "We're staying," Jae-won said, "but we're locking ourselves in the guest room. We won't come out unless you explicitly ask. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Say it back to us. You won't come out unless I ask." "Even if we hear you in pain," Daehyun added, voice strained. "Even if every instinct is screaming at us to help, we won't move until you give permission." Seungmin nodded, then realized they couldn't see him. "I understand." They left. A door down the hall closed, locked. Seungmin collapsed back onto the bed as another wave of heat crashed through him. His body screamed for relief, for his mates, for the bond that could make this easier. But they'd locked themselves away to keep him safe, even from themselves. Hours blurred together, pain and need and the overwhelming scent of alpha so close but untouchable. Seungmin tried to manage it himself, but nothing worked. Nothing helped. His body knew what it wanted and wouldn't accept substitutes. Somewhere past midnight, when the pain had built to something unbearable, Seungmin found himself crawling off the bed. Down the hallway, to the guest room door. He pressed his forehead against the wood. "Please," he whispered. Silence. Then Daehyun's voice, wrecked and desperate. "Are you asking us to come to you?" "Yes." "Are you sure?" Jae-won this time. "Once we start, we won't be able to stop. Our instincts will take over. We might hurt you." "You won't. You can't know that. I trust you anyway." The lock clicked. The door opened slowly. Both alphas stood there, eyes dark and wild, fighting every instinct to maintain control. Their scents crashed over Seungmin like a wave, and he felt his body respond with desperate relief. This was the moment everything would change or shatter completely. Daehyun dropped to his knees in front of Seungmin, bringing them to eye level. "Tell us what you need." "You," Seungmin breathed. "Both of you, please." Jae-won's hands clenched at his sides. "We're too big. We'll hurt you." "Then be gentle." "We don't know if we can." Seungmin reached out with a shaking hand and touched Daehyun's face. The contact sent electricity through both of them. Try, Seungmin whispered. Daehyun's hands trembled as he helped Seungmin to his feet. The Omega could barely stand, heat flooding his system and making his legs weak. His scent had gone thick and desperate, calling to every alpha instinct Daehyun had spent years learning to control. Beside him, Jaewon's breathing had turned ragged, his eyes dark with barely restrained need. Bed, Daehyun managed, his voice rough. We need to get you to bed. They moved slowly down the hallway, supporting Seungmin between them. Every point of contact felt electric, every breath filled with scent that made rational thought nearly impossible. Inside Seungmin's room, they lowered him onto the mattress with careful hands. He sprawled across the sheets, skin flushed and glistening with sweat, chest rising and falling with quick, shallow breaths. Beautiful, broken. Trusting them despite every reason not to. Tell us if anything's too much, Jaewon said, kneeling beside the bed. We stop the second you say stop. Seungmin nodded, words beyond him now. Daehyun stripped off his shirt and joined his twin. They bracketed Seungmin between them, scent marking first, letting him adjust to their proximity. Gentle touches along his arms, his shoulders, nothing demanding yet, just presence and warmth and the promise of relief. Seungmin whimpered, arching into the contact. We've got you, Daehyun murmured against his temple. We're going to take care of you. Clothes came off slowly, Seungmin's shirt, his pants, until he lay bare between them, vulnerable and shaking, and more beautiful than anything they had ever seen. Then they undressed. Seungmin's eyes went wide. His breath caught. Fear flooded his sense so fast it cut through the heat like a knife. He was staring at them, at what they'd tried to hide, at the reasons 7 Omegas had run. Oh God, Seungmin whispered. I can't. That won't fit. You'll kill me. Daehyun's chest cracked open. He'd known this moment would come. Known that seeing would be different from imagining. Known that reality would send Seungmin running, just like all the others. It's okay, Daehyun said, even though nothing was okay. We understand. He started to pull away. Seungmin's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. Wait. You're terrified, Jaewon said gently. We can see it. We won't force this. I know you won't. Seungmin's grip tightened. That's why I'm asking you to try. You just said, I know what I said. Seungmin's eyes met Daehyun's, then Jaewon's. I'm scared. But you're not trying to hurt me. That's the difference. Every other alpha didn't care if I bled. You do. We could still hurt you by accident, Daehyun said. Then we'll go slow. We'll stop if it's too much. Seungmin's voice shook. But I trust you. Please. I need you. Heat was making him desperate, but Daehyun heard the truth underneath. Seungmin wasn't just asking for relief. He was choosing them. Choosing to believe they were different. Okay, Daehyun breathed, but we prepare you first. Properly. No rushing. They took their time, hands and mouths mapping Seungmin's body until he was writhing beneath them. Slick already easing the way, heat making him open and ready faster than normal. But they didn't rush. Used fingers first, stretching carefully, listening to every sound Seungmin made. 1 finger, then 2, then 3. More, Seungmin gasped. Please, I need more. Not yet, Jaewon said, voice strained with control. Not until you're ready. 4 fingers. Seungmin's body fighting between the need to accept and the physical limitation of what they were asking. I can't take any more, Seungmin whimpered. I'm ready, please. Daehyun positioned himself first, the head of his cock pressing against Seungmin's entrance. So much bigger than his fingers. Too big for someone so small. Breathe, Daehyun coached. Slow breaths. Tell me if I need to stop. He pushed in slowly, inch by careful inch. Seungmin cried out, hands fisting in the sheets. Pain and pleasure mixed in his scent, his body struggling to accommodate the intrusion. Stop, Daehyun said immediately, freezing. Don't stop, Seungmin panted. Don't you dare stop. Just slow. Go slow. Daehyun had never exercised more control in his life. Every instinct screamed at him to thrust deep, to claim, to take. But he held himself perfectly still, letting Seungmin's body adjust. Move, Shungmin finally whispered. Please move. Daehyun pulled back slightly, then pressed forward again, deeper this time. Shungmin's body opened for him, slick easing the way, heat making the impossible somehow work. That's it, Jaewon murmured, stroking Shungmin's hair. You're doing so well. Another thrust, deeper still. Then Daehyun was fully seated, buried completely inside the Omega, trembling beneath him, and the bond snapped into place like a lock clicking home. The world went white. Sungmin screamed, but not in pain, in overwhelming sensation, in relief, in recognition of something that had been missing his entire life finally slotting into place. Daehyun moved, unable to hold still anymore. Long, slow strokes that had Shungmin babbling incoherently beneath him. His knot started to swell, catching on Shungmin's rim with every thrust. Going to knot you, Daehyun warned. Going to claim you. Say yes. Yes, Shungmin sobbed. Please, yes. The knot locked. Daehyun's teeth found Shungmin's throat, biting down on the scent gland and marking him permanently. Shungmin came with a broken cry, clenching around Daehyun's knot so hard it sent them both over the edge. They stayed locked together, trembling through aftershocks, while Jaewon stroked soothing hands over both of them. 20 minutes passed before Daehyun's knot released enough for him to pull out carefully. Shungmin whimpered at the loss, still needy, still burning with heat that demanded more. Jaewon moved into position immediately, but his hands were gentler than before, almost reverent. You took him so well, Jaewon murmured, pressing kisses along Shungmin's jaw. But I know you're sore. Tell me if it's too much. Need you, Shungmin breathed, reaching for him. Please, Jaewon. Jaewon lined himself up, pressing just the head inside. Shungmin was already stretched from Daehyun, slick and open, but still so tight it made Jaewon's vision blur. You're perfect, Jaewon said, pushing in slowly. So perfect for us. This time was different. Shungmin's body remembered how to accept them now. The initial resistance gave way faster, his muscles relaxing around Jaewon's cock as he slid deeper. But it still took time, still required patience. Halfway in, Shungmin tensed. Wait, just give me a second. Jaewon froze instantly, despite every instinct screaming at him to move. Take all the time you need. Shungmin breathed through it, adjusting to the stretch and burn. Then his legs wrapped around Jaewon's waist, pulling him deeper. More, Shungmin demanded. I want all of you. Jaewon thrust home in one long, controlled slide, and Shungmin's back arched off the bed. The feeling of being completely filled, completely claimed, tore a sound from his throat that was half sob, half moan. There, Jaewon groaned, buried to the hilt. All of me, every inch. He started moving with slow, deep strokes that had Shungmin clawing at his back. Different rhythm than Daehyun. Different angle, hitting spots that made Shungmin shake and gasp and beg for more. You're ours now, Jaewon said against his ear. No one else gets to touch you. No one else gets to have you. Yours, Shungmin agreed breathlessly. Only yours. Jaewon's knot began to swell, stretching Shungmin even further. He whimpered but didn't ask him to stop. Just held on tighter, trusting Jaewon to take care of him. Going to mark you, Jaewon warned. Going to put my bite right next to my brother's so everyone knows you belong to both of us. Do it, Shungmin gasped. Mark me. Make it permanent. The knot locked just as Jaewon's teeth sank into the other side of Shungmin's throat. The dual sensation sent Shungmin over the edge, orgasm crashing through him so hard he nearly blacked out. Jaewon followed seconds later, spilling inside him while the bond sealed between them. 2 marks, 2 knots. 2 alphas who'd claimed him as completely as possible. When Jaewon's knot finally released, Shungmin lay boneless between them, covered in sweat and slick and claiming marks. Their scents had mixed into something new, something that smelled like home and safety and forever. Daehyun pulled him close, pressing a kiss to his temple. Jaewon curled against his back, surrounding him with warmth. Thank you, Shungmin whispered, for being gentle, for making it work. Thank you for trusting us, Daehyun said. They lay in comfortable silence, bodies recovering, bonds settling into place. Then fists pounded against the penthouse door, heavy, aggressive, the sound of authority demanding entry. Open up! A voice boomed from outside. This is PAC enforcement. We need to speak with Daehyun and Jaewon immediately regarding an unauthorized auction purchase. Seungmin went rigid. Fear flooded his scent, cutting through the satisfied warmth. Daehyun and Jaewon were already moving, grabbing clothes, positioning themselves between Seungmin and the door. Stay here, Jaewon ordered. Don't come out no matter what you hear. More pounding. We know you're in there. Open this door or we're coming in. They just claimed each other, and now everything was about to fall apart. Daehyun was already moving, pulling on pants with shaking hands while his heart still hammered from claiming his mate. Beside him, Jaewon grabbed a shirt, both of them trying to look presentable when every instinct screamed to stay in bed with Seungmin. Seungmin's eyes were wide with fear, his scent sharp with panic cutting through the satisfied warmth. Fresh claiming bites stood out stark on both sides of his throat. What if they don't leave? Seungmin whispered. They will. Daehyun leaned down, pressing a kiss to his forehead. Lock the door behind us. We'll be right back. More pounding shook the frame. Last warning before we breach. Daehyun and Jaewon stepped into the hallway, pulling the bedroom door closed behind them. They heard the lock click immediately. Good, at least Seungmin was secure. Daehyun opened the front door to find 3 PAC enforcers in tactical gear, faces grim and professional. Behind them stood council member Doyeon, arms crossed and expression cold. Daehyun, Jaewon. Doyeon's voice carried formal authority. You're summoned to an emergency council meeting, immediately. For what? Jaewon asked. You know exactly what. Doyeon's eyes flicked past them, searching the penthouse. Where's the Omega you purchased? That's none of your business, Daehyun said flatly. It's very much council business when you purchase stolen property from our rival PAC. Doyeon stepped forward. Get dressed properly. You have 5 minutes, then we're escorting you to chambers. We're not leaving, Jaewon said. One of the enforcers rested his hand on his weapon. That wasn't a request. Daehyun's jaw tightened. Refusing a direct council summons meant immediate consequences. Arrest. Possible expulsion. They couldn't protect Seungmin if they were in PAC custody themselves. Give us 10 minutes, Daehyun said. 5, Doyeon repeated. And if that Omega runs while you're gone, we'll hunt him down as a fugitive. The door closed. Daehyun and Jaewon stood in silence for 3 seconds, then moved fast, changed into proper suits, checked weapons they kept hidden in the closet, sent encrypted messages to their cousin Min-seok explaining the situation. Then they went back to Seungmin's door and knocked softly. It's us. The lock clicked. Seungmin opened it just enough to see them, still wrapped in a sheet, eyes haunted. They're making us go to a council meeting, Daehyun said quietly. We don't have a choice. How long? Seungmin asked. I don't know. Could be an hour. Could be longer. Jaewon stepped closer. Lock this door. Don't open it for anyone except us. If someone tries to force their way in, there's a panic button in the nightstand that alerts private security. What if they don't come? They will. I pay them enough to respond within 3 minutes. Jaewon pulled out his phone, sending a quick message. I'm putting them on alert now. Any breach of this penthouse, they come armed. Seungmin nodded, but fear still radiated from him in waves. We just claimed you, Daehyun said, reaching out to touch one of the fresh marks on Seungmin's throat. Nothing's going to take you from us. We'll be back soon. Promise? Promise. Another knock at the front door. Time's up. Daehyun and Jaewon left, every step away from their mate feeling like tearing off skin. The enforcers escorted them down to a black SUV waiting in the underground garage. 20 minutes later, they stood in the council chambers, facing 12 stern faces. Sit, commanded head councilman Ha-jun. They sat. Do you know why you're here? Ha-jun asked. No, Daehyun lied. Don't play stupid. You attended an underground auction run by the Beck PAC. You purchased an Omega for an obscene amount and brought him into our territory without authorization. Even though you used fake names, we have multiple witnesses. Ha-jun's eyes narrowed. You've embarrassed this PAC and exposed business relationships we prefer stayed quiet. What business relationships? Jaewon asked coldly. Several council members shifted. Councilman Doyeon's scent sharpened with anger. You had no authority to interfere with that operation, Doyeon said. You've made us look weak. We saved an Omega from being bought by Juntai, Daehyun said. That's all. That's not all, a new voice said from the doorway. A man stepped inside, young and sharp-eyed, flanked by two backpack enforcers. His scent carried wealth and authority. Who are you? Hajun demanded. Siwoo Baek. I'm here to retrieve stolen property. Daehyun's blood went cold. The Omega you purchased belongs to my pack, Siwoo continued smoothly. The auction was an internal transfer, not a sale to outsiders. You had no right to him. The auctioneer accepted our bid, Jae-won said. The auctioneer exceeded his authority, and you used fake names. Siwoo pulled out a tablet. But that's secondary to why I'm really here. Your Omega is wanted for murder. Silence crashed through the chamber. 2 years ago, my brother Kang Min died in what was ruled a car accident. New evidence suggests otherwise. Sungmin was the last person seen with him. We believe he killed Kang Min and staged the scene. Daehyun thought of the defiance in Sungmin's eyes at the auction, the scars covering his body, the way he'd flinched from touch, and Omega who'd killed to survive. You have no proof, Daehyun said. I have enough to demand his return for trial under backpack law. Hajun's expression calculated. This is serious. It's bullshit, Jae-won snarled. You want him back to punish him for whatever your brother did. Careful, Siwoo warned. Doyeon stood. They've brought a murderer into our territory, bonded with him. They've tied our pack to a criminal. Other council members murmured agreement. The corrupt ones, the ones with everything to lose, all voiced support. He's our mate, Daehyun said. We won't surrender him. Then you choose him over your pack, Hajun said. Yes. Hajun leaned back. The council will vote. If this goes as expected, you have 48 hours to return him or face expulsion. The vote was 10-2. Daehyun and Jae-won left in silence, rage burning cold in their chests. They had to get back to Sungmin, had to warn him, had to figure out how to protect him from 2 packs and a murder charge. The SUV dropped them at the building entrance. They took the elevator up, each second feeling like an eternity. The penthouse door was ajar. Daehyun's heart stopped. He shoved it open. Furniture overturned. Glass shattered. The coffee table cracked down the middle, and in the center a dark stain spreading across white carpet. Blood, fresh, still warm, smelling unmistakably like Sungmin. Jae-won made a sound like a wounded animal, dropping to his knees beside it. The bedroom window was shattered. Claw marks gouged the walls. Backpack's scent lingered thick and triumphant. Sungmin was gone. Jae-won's phone buzzed. Unknown number. A photo attachment. Sungmin unconscious and bleeding, hands bound, bruises forming on his face. Basement. Concrete. Alone. Below it. Stop looking. He's ours now. The bond in Daehyun's chest screamed, pulling toward a mate he couldn't reach. The bond was 3 hours old, and they were already ready to kill for it. Daehyun doubled over, clutching his chest as pain lanced through the mate mark on his throat. Not his pain, Sungmin's. Sharp and terrible and coming in waves that made breathing feel impossible. Beside him, Jae-won had gone white, one hand braced against the wall to keep from collapsing. He's hurting, Jae-won gasped. They're hurting him. Daehyun forced himself upright, jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. They'd been staring at that photo for 10 minutes, trying to trace the number, searching for any clue about where the backpack had taken their mate. Nothing. The message was untraceable. The photo showed only concrete walls and darkness. The front door burst open and Min-seok rushed in, eyes going wide at the destruction. What the hell happened? They took him, Daehyun said. During the council meeting. They took Sungmin. Min-seok pulled out his phone immediately, fingers flying across the screen. I'm calling our people. We'll search every Baek territory location until we find him. There's no time, Jae-won said, voice strained. The bond, we can feel him. He's terrified, in pain. We have to go now. Go where? Min-seok looked up. We don't know where they're holding him. Another wave of pain hit, and both twins staggered. Daehyun tasted blood where he'd bitten his tongue, and he knew it was an echo of what Sungmin was experiencing. Real blood. Real injury. Southeast, Daehyun said through gritted teeth. The pull is strongest southeast. That's half the city, Minseok said. Beck territory covers 12 blocks in that direction. Warehouses, office buildings, residential spaces. They could have him anywhere. Then we search all of it. That's suicide. You go into Beck territory looking for him, they'll kill you both. They can try, Jaewon said. Minseok grabbed his cousin's shoulder. Listen to me. I know the bond is driving you crazy, but you need to think. They're waiting for you to do exactly this. Come charging in alone and stupid so they can eliminate all three of you at once. We can't leave him there, Daehyun said. I'm not saying leave him. I'm saying we need a plan. Backup. Something other than a suicide run. Daehyun wanted to agree, wanted to be smart and strategic like he'd been trained. But the bond screamed in his chest, and all he could think about was Seungmin, alone, and bleeding, and waiting for them to save him. I'm going, Daehyun said. With or without help. Minseok looked between them, saw the determination and desperation, and sighed. Fine. Give me 20 minutes to pull together a team. We go in smart, we go in armed, and we get him out. 15 minutes, Jaewon said. Deal. On the other hand, Seungmin woke to cold concrete against his cheek and the taste of blood in his mouth. His hands were bound behind his back with zip ties that cut into his wrists. His body ached from the kidnapping, from being thrown through a window, from fresh claiming bites that should have been healing in the safety of his mate's bed. He knew this basement, recognized the water-stained walls and the single bulb hanging from exposed pipes. He'd been held here before, 3 years ago, when he'd first been brought into the backpack. Footsteps echoed on stairs he couldn't see. Siwoo appeared, flanked by 2 enforcers. He looked down at Seungmin with cold eyes. You're awake. Good. Seungmin said nothing. I have questions about my brother's death, Siwoo continued, and you're going to answer them. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie. You were the last person with Kang Min before the accident. Witnesses saw you leaving his private quarters covered in blood. The fire started minutes later. Siwoo crouched down, getting eye level. What really happened that night? Seungmin's throat went tight. It was an accident. Accidents don't leave people dead and buildings burned. Try again. He fell. Hit his head. I tried to help, but the fire... Siwoo's fist connected with his jaw, snapping his head sideways. Pain exploded across his face. I said don't lie. Seungmin spat blood onto the concrete. Through the ringing in his ears, he felt the bond flare with alarm. His mates had felt that. They knew he was hurt. Good. Let them feel it. Let them know to stay away before the backpack killed them too. Here's what I think happened, Siwoo said. I think you killed him. I think you fought back against your owner and murdered him. And I think you've been hiding that truth for 2 years. Believe whatever you want. Another hit, this time to his ribs. Seungmin curled inward, gasping. The thing is, Siwoo said, standing, I don't actually care if it was self-defense or cold-blooded murder. Either way, you killed a Beck Alpha. That's a death sentence. Whether you really killed him or not, he smirked and Seungmin's brows furrowed. Just at that moment, the door at the top of the stairs opened again. Slow footsteps descended. Uneven, labored. Then a voice Seungmin had prayed he'd never hear again spoke from the shadows. Hello, pet. Ice flooded Seungmin's veins. No, it wasn't possible. He was dead. The fire had killed him. Seungmin had watched the building burn with Kangmin still inside. But the man who stepped into the light was undeniably Kangmin Beck, or what was left of him. The left side of his face was a twisted mass of scar tissue, his eye milky and blind. Burns covered his neck and disappeared under his collar. His hands were gnarled, fingers bent at wrong angles that had healed poorly. Surprised to see me? Kangmin's remaining good eye fixed on Seungmin with pure hatred. You should be. Everyone thinks I'm dead. Even my own pack believed it for months. Seungmin couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I've been waiting for this, Kangmin continued, moving closer. Waiting for the day I could look at you again and make you pay for what you did to me. You were killing me, Seungmin whispered. I was teaching you your place. You almost beat me to death, you bastard. His teeth chattered. Kangmin's scarred face twisted into something that might have been a smile. And you fought back. You, a worthless Omega, dared to raise your hand against your alpha, against your owner. The memories crashed over Shungmin like a wave. Kangmin's fists, his boots, the wooden rod he'd used until Shungmin's back was nothing but raw meat. The moment Shungmin had grabbed the fallen lamp in pure desperation, swinging it blindly, connecting with Kangmin's head. The spray of lamp oil, the spark from exposed wires, the fire that erupted faster than either of them expected. Shungmin running while Kangmin screamed behind him. "I wanted to live," Shungmin said. "That's all. I just wanted to survive. And look what it cost me." Kangmin gestured to his ruined face. "My looks, my reputation. 2 years hiding like a ghost while my face healed enough to show in public. All because you couldn't accept your place." He pulled out a gun. Shungmin's heart stopped. "But now I get my revenge," Kangmin said. "Not just on you. On those twin alphas who think they can claim what belongs to me. They're coming for you, you know. I can see it in your eyes. You're hoping they'll save you." "They won't come," Shungmin lied. "They will. The bond won't let them stay away." Kangmin's smile widened. "And when they get here, I'll kill them in front of you. Then I'll take my time with you. Make you suffer everything I suffered and more." He pressed the barrel of the gun against Shungmin's temple. Cold metal, steady pressure. One pull of the trigger and everything would end. The bond in Shungmin's chest pulled tight, reaching desperately for his mates. He felt their rage, their terror, their determination to reach him. They were close. Too close. "Don't come," Shungmin whispered to the bond, knowing they couldn't hear but hoping somehow they'd understand. "Please don't come." But the basement door exploded inward. Daehyun and Jaewon burst through, weapons drawn, eyes wild. They froze when they saw the gun. Kangmin's scarred face split into a vicious grin. Perfect timing. The gun pressed harder against Shungmin's temple, and Daehyun felt his world narrow to that single point of cold metal. "Drop your weapons," Kangmin said, his scarred face twisted with triumph. "Now, or I paint these walls with his brain." Jaewon's hands tightened on his gun. "Let him go." "I don't think you understand the situation." Kangmin's finger moved to the trigger. "You have 3 seconds. 3, 2, wait." Daehyun lowered his weapon slowly, setting it on the concrete floor. "Don't shoot. We're putting them down." Jaewon hesitated 1 second longer, then followed his twin's lead. Both guns clattered against stone. Backpack enforcers moved in immediately, grabbing their arms and forcing them to their knees. Daehyun didn't fight. Couldn't fight. Not with that gun still pressed against Shungmin's head. "Good," Kangmin said. "Now you'll watch. You'll see what happens to Omegas who forget their place, and then I'll kill you both." Shungmin's eyes met Daehyun's across the basement. Blood ran from his split lip. Bruises darkened his jaw, but his gaze was steady, clear, and filled with something that looked like goodbye. "Don't," Daehyun said quietly. "Whatever you're thinking, don't." Shungmin's mouth curved into the smallest, saddest smile. Then he moved. His bound hands shot up, grabbing for Kangmin's wrist. The motion was clumsy, desperate, but it caught Kangmin off guard. The gun jerked sideways. "You little," Kangmin snarled, trying to wrench free. Shungmin held on with everything he had, twisting, pulling, fighting despite zip ties cutting into his wrists. They struggled for control of the weapon. Kangmin's superior strength against Shungmin's frantic determination. The gun went off. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. For one suspended heartbeat, everything stopped. Then Shungmin collapsed. Blood bloomed across his shoulder, spreading fast through his torn shirt. His bound hands fell away from the gun. His body hit concrete with a sickening thud. The bond in Daehyun's chest exploded. Pain, agony, the sensation of being shot even though the bullet had torn through Shungmin's flesh, not his. But through the mate bond, he felt every nerve-ending scream, every drop of blood that pulsed out of the wound. Beside him, Jaewon made a sound that wasn't human. Something inside both twins shattered. The enforcers holding them didn't stand a chance. Daehyun wrenched free with strength that shouldn't have been possible, fueled by mate bond and pure rage. He drove his elbow into the enforcer's throat, grabbed the man's head, and twisted. The crack echoed through the basement. Jaewon was already moving, a blur of violence that left 2 enforcers on the ground before they could draw weapons. His eyes had gone completely dark, every rational thought burned away by the need to reach his dying mate. They fought like animals. No technique, no strategy, just raw, feral desperation. An enforcer pulled a knife. Dae-hyun took it away and buried it in the man's chest without hesitation. Another tried to block his path to Seungmin. Dae-hyun broke his arm in 2 places and threw him aside like garbage. Kangmin raised the gun again, aiming at Seungmin's motionless form. Dae-hyun reached him first. He grabbed Kangmin's gun hand, forcing it skyward as another shot went wild. Then his other hand closed around Kangmin's throat. Squeezed, lifted him off his feet. "You shot our mate," Dae-hyun said, voice dead calm despite the rage burning in his chest. "You die now." Kangmin clawed at his hands, gasping. "He killed me first." "No." Dae-hyun's grip tightened. "He defended himself from a monster. Now I'm defending him from you." He felt the bones in Kangmin's throat give way. Felt the moment life left the alpha's body. Dropped the corpse without a second glance and turned to where Jaewon knelt beside Seungmin. Blood pooled under their mate's shoulder. His eyes were half closed, breath coming in short, pained gasps. The bond pulled so thin Dae-hyun could barely feel it anymore. "We need to move," Jaewon said, already pulling off his shirt to press against the wound. "He's bleeding out." More footsteps thundered down the stairs. Reinforcements. Da-hyun scooped Seungmin into his arms, cradling him against his chest. Seungmin's head lolled, but his eyes cracked open. "Shouldn't have come," he whispered. "Shut up," Dae-hyun said. "Save your strength." Min-suk appeared at the top of the stairs, weapon raised. "This way! Move!" They ran. Backpack enforcers filled the hallway, blocking their escape. Jaewon tore through them with brutal efficiency while Dae-hyun protected Seungmin's injured body. Blood sprayed. Bodies fell. Nothing mattered except getting their mate out alive. Min-suk's team provided covering fire as they burst through the building's exit into cold night air. A van waited with doors already open. Dae-hyun dove inside with Seungmin. Jaewon followed. The vehicle was moving before the doors closed. "Hospital!" Jaewon barked at the driver. "Now, fastest route." Dae-hyun laid Seungmin across his lap, applying pressure to the wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. His hands were soaked red within seconds. "Stay with us," Dae-hyun said. "Look at me. Keep your eyes open." Seungmin's gaze was unfocused, drifting. "I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Don't you dare. I killed him." Seungmin's voice was barely audible. "Killed my owner. That's the worst thing an Omega can do. I'm ruined, damaged." "You survived," Jaewon said fiercely, taking Seungmin's bound hands and cutting through the zip ties with his knife. "That's all that matters. He was beating me to death. I just wanted to live." Tears leaked from the corners of Seungmin's eyes. "I grabbed the lamp. It broke. The oil spilled. The fire started so fast, I thought he died. I thought I was a murderer." "You're not," Dae-hyun said. "You were protecting yourself. I've been so ashamed, so scared someone would find out what I did." "We know now," Jaewon said, "and we don't care. We love you anyway." Seungmin's eyes widened slightly. You can't love a murderer." "The bond understands, we understand," Dae-hyun said, "and that's enough." Seungmin's breath hitched. His eyes started to close. "No." Dae-hyun shook him gently. "Stay awake. We're almost there." "So tired." "I know, but you need to fight. Just a little longer." The bond was fading, growing dimmer with every second. Dae-hyun could feel Seungmin slipping away, life pouring out of him faster than they could stop it. The van screeched to a halt outside the emergency room entrance. Medical staff rushed out with a gurney. Dae-hyun laid Seungmin down carefully, his hands leaving bloody prints on white sheets. "Gunshot wound to the shoulder," a doctor called out. "Possible arterial damage. Get him to surgery now." They wheeled Seungmin away at a run. Dae-hyun and Jaewon tried to follow, but nurses stopped them at the surgery doors. "You can't go in. Wait here. We'll update you as soon as we can." The doors swung shut. Dae-hyun and Jaewon stood in the hallway, covered in blood, hands shaking with adrenaline crash. The bond in their chests pulled toward those surgery doors, toward their mate fighting for his life on the other side. Hours crawled past. They refused to leave, refused to sit, just stood and waited and felt the bond grow weaker with every minute. Finally, the surgery doors opened. A doctor emerged, still in blood-stained scrubs. His expression was carefully neutral as he approached. Daehyun's heart stopped. "We need to talk about your mate," the doctor said. Daehyun's hands curled into fists at his sides, every muscle locked tight. Beside him, Jaewon had gone completely still, barely breathing. The bond in their chests pulled weakly toward the surgery doors, toward their mate on the other side. "Your mate survived the surgery," the doctor said. "We removed the bullet and repaired the arterial damage, but there are complications." "What kind of complications?" Jaewon asked. "His immune system is severely compromised. Years of sustained trauma, malnutrition, and repeated injuries have left his body with almost no reserves to fight infection or heal properly." The doctor's expression was grim. "We're doing everything we can, but he's not responding to treatment the way he should. The next 48 hours are critical." "Can we see him?" Daehyun asked. "ICU only." "5 minutes." They followed the doctor through sterile hallways to a room filled with machines and monitors. In the center of it all, Seungmin lay pale and small against white sheets. Tubes ran from his arms. A ventilator helped him breathe. Bandages covered his shoulder where the bullet had torn through. He looked like he was already dying. Daehyun moved to one side of the bed, Jaewon to the other. They each took one of Seungmin's hands, careful of the IV lines. "We're here," Daehyun said quietly. "We're not leaving." Seungmin's eyes fluttered but didn't open. The doctor cleared his throat. "You should prepare yourselves. Given the state of his body, survival is uncertain. Even if he makes it through the next 2 days, recovery will be long and difficult." "He'll make it," Jaewon said. "I hope you're right." The doctor left. The twins stayed. Hours blurred together. Nurses came and went, checking vitals and adjusting medications. Daehyun and Jaewon refused to move, holding Seungmin's hands and talking to him even when he couldn't respond. "Remember when you first walked into our kitchen?" Jaewon said softly. "You looked ready to bolt at any second. But you stayed. You were so brave." "You're still brave," Daehyun added. "You're the strongest person we've ever met. So keep fighting, please." Around midnight, Seungmin's eyes finally opened. Unfocused at first, struggling to make sense of the tubes and machines. Then his gaze found theirs, and something like relief flickered across his face. "You're here," he whispered, voice raw from the ventilator they'd recently removed. "Always," Daehyun said. Seungmin's eyes filled with tears. "I'm dying, aren't I?" "No," Jaewon said firmly. "You're healing. I can feel it, my body giving up." A tear slid down his temple. "I've been hurt too many times. There's nothing left." "Don't say that. It's okay." Seungmin's hand squeezed weakly around Daehyun's fingers. "I'm not scared. Not anymore. Because I got to have this. I got to have you both, even if it was just for a little while." Daehyun's throat closed up. "I need to tell you something," Seungmin continued, each word an effort. "Before I can't anymore." "You can tell us later," Jaewon said, "when you're stronger." "No, now, please." They nodded, not trusting their voices. "Thank you," Seungmin said, "for choosing me, for wanting me even when I was broken, even when I came with so much damage and danger and shame." "You were never broken to us," Daehyun said. "I was. I am. But you made me feel whole anyway." Another tear fell. "You showed me what love looks like, what gentleness feels like. Nobody ever did that before. Every touch I knew came with pain. But you," his voice cracked, "you were so careful, so kind. You made me feel like I mattered." "You do matter," Jaewon said. "I keep thinking about something." Seungmin's gaze went distant. "What if I'd met you when I first presented? At 18, before Kangmin and the other alphas bought me. Before everything went wrong." He paused, breathing hard. "I'll never know what that life could have been. But I can't stop imagining it. How different everything would have been. How beautiful." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Maybe I would have been normal. Maybe I wouldn't have all these scars. Maybe I could have given you a mate you could be proud of." "We are proud of you," Daehyun said fiercely. "You survived years of hell and you're still here, still fighting. That's everything." "I'm not fighting anymore," Seungmin said. "I'm so tired. I just want to rest." "Then rest," Jaewon said, even though the words felt like swallowing glass. "We'll be right here when you wake up." "What if I don't wake up?" "You will." Seungmin smiled, sad and exhausted. Thank you for making the end of my life the best part of it. This isn't the end, Daehyun said. It feels like it. Seungmin's eyes were already closing. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer. Don't apologize, just rest. I love you both, Seungmin whispered. I should have said it before. I love you. His eyes closed. His hand went slack in theirs. No, Jaewon said. Seungmin, stay awake. Please. But he was already gone, slipped into unconsciousness so deep it looked like death. Dahyun pressed his forehead against Seungmin's hand, tears finally breaking free. Jaewon leaned over their mate's still form, shoulders shaking. The bond pulled thin and fragile, barely there. They stayed like that for hours, holding him, begging through the bond for him not to leave, watching monitors for any sign of change. Slowly, impossibly, his vitals began to stabilize. Heart rate steadying, oxygen levels rising, the infection markers in his blood starting to drop. His body was fighting back. By morning, the doctor came in with cautious optimism. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He's responding now. It's slow, but he's improving. Days passed in a blur of gradual recovery. Seungmin woke confused that he was still alive. The twins cried with relief. Machines were removed one by one as his body remembered how to heal. 2 weeks later, the doctor cleared him for discharge. Seungmin sat in a wheelchair by the hospital exit, still weak but alive, while Daehyun went to get the car. Jaewon stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder. A familiar figure approached, Minsok, looking tired but satisfied. Thought I'd catch you before you left, he said. What's wrong? Jaewon asked. Nothing's wrong. Everything's right for once. Minsok smiled. The corrupt council members have been arrested. Federal charges, evidence from the auction house tied them to trafficking, money laundering, everything. They're done. Seungmin's breath caught. And the auction house, Jaewon asked. Burned to the ground 3 days ago. Authorities raided it, seized all the records, and made sure it could never operate again. The backpacks trafficking operation is finished. Seungmin started crying, not from pain or fear this time, from overwhelming relief, from freedom, from the realization that the nightmare was actually over. It's done, he whispered. It's really done. Minsok crouched down to eye level. You're safe now. All of you. Daehyun pulled up with the car. They helped Seungmin inside carefully, settling him in the back seat with Jaewon while Daehyun drove. The penthouse had been repaired. New windows, new furniture, but the same view, the same space where they'd first claimed each other. That night, Seungmin lay between his mates in bed, feeling the bond strong and steady in his chest. The claiming marks on his throat had healed into permanent scars. His shoulder still ached, but he was alive. I get to live, he whispered into the darkness. I actually get to live. Daehyun's arm tightened around his waist. Jaewon pressed a kiss to his hair, and for the first time in years, Seungmin believed in tomorrow. The end. They were broken in different ways, rejected for what they couldn't change, shamed for surviving. But love doesn't need perfection. It just needs truth. Seungmin thought he'd die as property. Daehyun and Jaewon thought they'd die alone. Instead, they found each other in the darkest place and chose to fight for something neither believed they deserved. Sometimes the bond that saves you is the one you never saw coming. If this story made you feel something, hope, heartbreak, or the belief that broken people can still find home, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this. Your support helps me keep creating emotional journeys that matter. Drop a comment telling me which moment hit you hardest. Was it Seungmin's, "What if I'd met you at 18? Was it the twins refusing to leave? Was it the moment he whispered, "I love you," thinking it was goodbye? Share this with someone who needs to hear that everyone deserves to be chosen. Everyone deserves to be loved, even when the world says they're too damaged to keep.